Hey everyone, in this video we want to take a little time to talk to you about the ego state and how to know when you're operating from it as opposed to operating from a more integrated self standpoint.
Yeah, I write a lot about it, but I realized that I don't really tell you what it is, right?
Yeah, so what is the ego?
It's our sense of self, our self-esteem, and it's a part of the mind that mediates between the conscious and the unconscious states. It's often used to test reality.
Okay, so it's basically how a person perceives themselves and how they interact in the world with this self-image. Okay.
Yeah.
So, like, how does it form? Where does the ego get its roots from?
In childhood, we go through a sense of, or a process of maturation through the states. As children, we're pretty egocentric and self-centered, right? We all know that.
What do you mean? Like, what's an example?
What do you mean?
Well, when you say a child is egocentric, like how would an adult witness a child being egocentric?
Well, they think the world revolves around them, right?
Okay.
Like thinking that, well, you remember as a child, right?
Yeah, it's hard to see. So basically,
that's why everything looks so big and
yeah, so basically
you're the center of the universe.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess at a fundamental level then, if you're operating from an ego standpoint, you're only seeing things through your perspective. And you're not appreciating others.
Children only know their own perspective.
Okay.
That's why a lot of parents, they get so frustrated with their kids and they're like, can't you just be nice?
Yeah, but I mean, it's not really their fault, right? Because they
haven't
developed.
It's a natural state, and so parents need to be compassionate with your little children that are going through this maturation process through that. During teenage years, we are very egocentric, and it looks like being overly concerned with what other people think.
Oh, okay. Because we care about our self-image, right?
Yep. There's an obsession with it.
Yeah.
With our self-image. And as adults, there's a belief that we mature out of that, but we don't most of the time. Or most adults don't. And anyone on the internet, you know that most adults don't mature out of the egocentric state, right? She's playing. The reason why we don't mature out is because we're never taught communication, emotional regulation, awareness of our own personal states and our feelings, perspectives, right? We're not taught how to see that stuff. A lot of people do this through self-help books. That's how I did it. I took psychology classes in college, and then I went through some of my own issues, and so I started reading all these books on how to do ego integration, and that's where I'm at now. And so I'm very compassionate with other people because they really haven't had the drive or the know-how to even mature out of that.
Okay. So what are, like, if we fast forward to the adult phase, which is where most of the people listening to this are probably operating from, I guess we should preface this by saying, having an ego is completely normal and it's healthy.
Yeah, we don't want to get rid of it.
You need to have an ego. You need to have a self-identity and a sense of self, because that's what allows you to take care of yourself.
Yes.
If you don't have an ego, you would never take care of yourself, and that's not healthy.
Yeah.
But you can't only take care of yourself, because that's not healthy either.
Yep.
And so when you're getting into...
So we need to regulate it.
Yeah, and so when you're getting into discussions with other people, especially people that you're in a relationship with, whether it be a family member or your significant other, it's really important to...
Or even online.
Yeah.
The first way you can spot your ego being, like, overly centered is if you get defensive in a conversation. Ask yourself why. Because it's usually rooted in your ego and your own self-image.
Yeah. Exactly. Playing off that, it's kind of like, it's completely normal to defend your viewpoints. That's normal. What is egotistical is when you not only defend your viewpoints, but you try and force someone else to share in those viewpoints. And if they don't share in those viewpoints, then you dismiss them, you think less of them,
You're
whatever.
not friends with them anymore, you cut them out of your family.
Yeah.
That's an egocentric state.
Because they aren't able to see things from your perspective. But you have to take a step back and ask, well, why does your perspective matter more than theirs?
Exactly. It doesn't.
On certain issues, there are going to be right or wrong answers. That is true. But even if the other person believes in something that is blatantly wrong, like the earth being flat, it's not your position to think they're a lesser human because they don't want to acknowledge that truth.
Exactly.
I mean, think about...
Well, it's complex why people don't accept certain truths.
Or why they hold on to various beliefs that may not be true. Everyone does it. There isn't a single person.
No one person is better than the other because of it.
Exactly.
And that's an ego-integrated state, that comment that I just made.
Yeah. It's that, yes, people can be right or wrong, but no one person is better or worse than someone else because they're right or wrong.
Yep.
So
what are some other ways that you can tell that you're in an ego state?
Well, kind of playing off what we had just said, where in general, if you judge someone and then you either feel either superior or inferior to them, that's operating from an ego state because you're comparing yourself, you're drawing your own self-worth from a comparison you're making with another human.
Yes.
Why is that comparison valid? Why are you choosing them to compare yourself to? It's really illogical when you think about it, but our ego does it all the time. You know, there's a reason why people like to share primarily their best self on social media.
Yes.
Is because these comparisons happen. They compare themselves to others and others compare themselves to you.
It's very egocentric.
So you want to put that ideal of yourself out there. You don't want to put like who you are in your day-to-day life. You only want to put the parts of your life
highlight
that you
reel
perceive
is what I call it.
As being ideal. Yeah, a highlight reel. That's perfect.
Yeah.
What else is there?
If you demand that someone behaves in a certain way. Okay, an example of this, the other day, Alex had something on his wall or whatever, someone demanding that he talk to them in a certain way. That is a very egocentric stance to take. No one has to talk to you in any certain way.
Yeah.
You're not entitled to that. And it's usually when you haven't matured past an egocentric, like teenage childhood state.
Yeah.
And so we see that, and most people think, well, you're upset because I'm telling you what. We don't really get upset at that stuff. Like, we don't. It's just we have compassion. We're like, wow, that's really sad that they are moving through life that way.
Yeah. Basically, you can't control other people. And it's very egocentric and entitled to think that someone should interact with you in a certain way. You really have two options of dealing with it. Either you can, for example, if you're in an online conversation and you don't like that the person is just swearing a lot, you can either just ignore the swear words and focus on the rest of the message and like get over yourself.
Or leave the situation
if it's
personally offensive.
And stop interacting with them.
I personally ask myself, why am I triggered? Because I don't like being triggered. Or I don't like feeling triggered. And the only person responsible for your triggers is yourself. Yeah. No one else is. So I want to dig deep on why I'm being triggered. And it's usually an insecurity of mine. Yeah,
they're great. They're great moments to introspect and learn
find your weaknesses,
something about yourself that you can improve upon. So kind of related to this idea of entitlement, you know, an egocentric state in general is going to be when you believe that you can fix, save, or otherwise heal someone else. Sticking, like this happens a lot.
A lot of us do that in relationships.
Yeah, where you see faults in the other person and you take it on as your responsibility to help them like grow and become better. And there's a fine distinction here.
Between helping someone and doing it for your own good.
Yeah, exactly. there's a great quote by Mark Manson that I like, and I'm not going to say it because I don't want this to be an explicit video.
Oh, you can say it.
But it's basically along the lines of, it's not about giving care to everything that your partner cares about. It's about caring about your partner regardless of what they care about. So if you're going to fix, save, or heal someone, the best way you can do that is just by being there to support them through their own internal journey. It's not trying to intervene yourself and make
control
it or make it happen for them.
Exactly.
That's egocentric. But being ego integrated is just being there for them when they need you on this journey that they themselves need to make.
Yeah, another thing that people often do is say yes to things they really want to say no to. And it's all rooted in your need for approval, usually. Well, all the time. People pleasers. It's not like selfless for you to be a people pleaser. I'm sorry. Most people think it is.
No, it's very selfish.
It's selfish.
Because you are doing it.
You're getting your value as a human off of pleasing other people.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, take a step back. If you say no to a request, what's going to happen? Is the other person going to get upset with you? And if so, why? Especially if it's just a basic thing. Like, why do they believe that you're obligated to say yes to their request? I mean, obviously, if you've had like plans or whatever to do something and then suddenly you back out because you change your mind, yeah, they're going to be upset.
That's disrespectful.
But that's not what we're saying here. This would be like...
saying yes to all the PTA meetings. Like, I know a lot of moms do that.
Yeah, things like that. Saying
you are getting your value off of meeting these arbitrary check marks in your mind, and that's all ego-based.
So yeah, saying yes when you really want to say no. Just say no. Be true to yourself. The other person, if they care about you, then they should be understanding of that. And if they aren't understanding, then that's something they need to work on. Yeah,
and they'll fall by the wayside if you start saying no and they're just using you.
Yeah.
You don't want that kind of relationship in your life anyways, right? Because, and that's the thing, as we become more ego integrated, we're going to lose friends because other people aren't going to mature at the same rate as you. And so you need to be okay with that.
Yep, exactly. And this kind of plays into the last one that we really want to touch on, which is criticizing yourself or dwelling over your past choices.
Mistakes. You know those overthinkers?
History, like, things happen, and you can't change the past. All you can do is live in the present and work towards a future. So I think the past is important
to pay mind to.
To learn from, so that you don't repeat mistakes. But there's no reason to dwell over it.
And obsess.
It's all about acknowledging it, taking what lessons you needed to learn from it, and then moving forward.
You can definitely tell that's an ego state just because it operates from fear, because you don't want it to happen again in the future, so you're obsessing over the past, right? And anything that comes from fear is ego-centric, like everything.
Because
anything
you're
that
concerned with yourself.
Yeah.
You're fearful for yourself. That's why it's ego.
Yep. And anything that is ego integrated usually has its roots in love.
Yeah. So to kind of just review these things again, and we'll list them all out in the comments, but basically, you're operating from an ego state when you defend your point while also trying to force someone else to share in what you believe to be true. When you compare yourself to others and you make yourself feel either inferior or superior compared to them, whether you believe you can fix, save, or otherwise heal someone else, when you demand others to behave a certain way, when you criticize or dwell on your own past, and when you say yes when you really want to say no.
Yep. So if you like this, give us a like. You can share it, you can subscribe, and we'll see you next time.